Hey.
Tuesday, Dr. Kenya.
Hey, Dr. Deanne.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't want to say it for you, but you
What's
gotta
my
say something,
name?
right? It's some days I wonder.
Yep.
So we are jumping into looking at UX, human-centered design from different altitudes within an organization. And one of the things that we haven't really talked a whole lot about, we talked about authentic leadership that dealt with being focused on human-centered design, but I don't think we really talked about what that means. And I think looking at the vision
Yeah.
or communicating an effective vision is a good way to put across to your organization what's important. And among other things, part of that is what you stand for in terms of what you do for your customer.
Yes. What's your goal? Yeah. The end game of things. What is that value statement that should apply across your products, let alone on individual with individual product teams? So
That's right. And that helps not only to make sure that everyone's on the same page and you can build consensus around a clear vision, but it also helps in terms of something that I've seen too many times in organizations and when I was in house myself was team members or individual contributors not understanding how the role or work that they do traces back to something bigger.
yes. Yes. What
And that vision and understanding, this is what from the top down, this is what is expected in terms of capability, the experiential aspects of what we're doing, what that looks like in terms of aligning to the customer's expectations and needs. When that's communicated from the top down, it makes it a lot easier for the team to rally around a common goal and to have conversations that are less about uh, working to get clarification and more around, let's be innovative. Let's do what's right for our customers.
Right. And avoiding, boxing yourself in because, you're working. It's hard. I know we've talked about this a lot. Teams are busy, especially in the tech world, really all industries, but you're so focused. You're trying, it's, that agile process, release, 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 feature, feature, feature. But there's usually or should be a bigger vision around all of that, an end goal. And I think of, we all are familiar with, your product roadmaps. And
Mhm.
they're great to see where you're going, but where are your kind of aspirational roadmaps? That's where you really get into what's the bigger vision for the company. It's not going to be an individual feature necessarily, or even an individual product.
Mhm.
Strategically, what is the senior leadership? Where do they see things growing? And I think going back to being in house on projects, understanding that helped us understand better how we were playing a role in that, or how an individual feature might in the future play a role in that. So, and if you're not thinking that way, then you just get into the grind of the day. Let's
Yeah.
prioritize these tasks and get it done. Where you may box yourself in, with where you can't expand and grow like your senior leadership is envisioning. So I always used to value when there were CEOs that really clearly spelled out, here's our future. So, for instance, we might have been working on an individual project and or feature set, and then hearing, oh well, the vision is we want to, back to what we talked about
Mhm.
last week, really leverage our data, really monetize our data. Well, that made what we were doing a whole different ball game in terms of how you were innovatively thinking. Oh, okay, so data is the big picture vision is leveraging all that valuable data we have and leveraging that in our products. It totally changed how we thought in terms of our little piece of that puzzle. So
As you said that, say that again.
I said that was a really good example for me where we learned it wasn't how do we incorporate that bigger strategic vision into what we're doing today.
Yeah, as you were describing that situation, I'm thinking about that near-term effort and, like you said, getting to the goal line in terms of getting those features out that are on the roadmap, that release out in the near term. And those conversations can be very nearsighted
Hmm.
around that feature set without thinking about, and I've seen this a lot in architectural discussions,
Yes.
where the system was not designed effectively from an architectural or database perspective in a way that would allow you to serve up that data
Yep.
in the future in a way that aligned with the vision, for example.
Yep.
And that's a really, really good example in terms of that nearsightedness that can box you in. And you get to a place where later on you're refactoring, you're having to do things, go back and do things differently, which
Yep.
then throws your schedule totally off, throws your roadmap off as well.
Your
And
budget.
so when you think about that, that vision is really, really critical. And how do you deliver that? I think about those town hall meetings that, you know, organizations have. And it pains me to hear clients talk to us about never having town hall conversations where your leadership is bringing everyone into a room to discuss that 10-year, 15, 20-year vision for the future of that organization and the offerings. I mean, that's
Yes.
really, really critical.
Yes, and don't make it too pie in the sky. I think it's good having those town halls where senior leadership is being transparent, talking about where they're going with things. But then you have to kind of help with the individual teams to understand how they fit. And those town halls might make them understand how they fit, but if not, then it kind of falls to your product management and your senior team leadership to figure out and communicate, okay, how are we going to fit, into this larger organizational vision of things. So I think it's just critical that information and in a way that people can consume, where the teams can consume this a value statement. I think, that's one thing you mentioned in your newsletter. You got to start with that. Does your organization, does your product have a value statement that fits in with the organization's statement? And does that fit in with their vision? So anyhow, it's always fun. Those
So
elevator pitches.
yes, and it's so what we've heard is the need to consider what message you're disseminating across the organization and that it's not too nebulous and pie in the sky, because the team has to understand what that means for the work that they're doing in the near term. It also means you've got to get out of the building and spend some time taking that vision and those value statements that hang off of that vision or that are a part of creating that vision.
Yes.
And now you want to go out and figure out the tangible or tactical aspects of what your product needs to do for your customer to help them align to your vision, but also what they need and where they see value in your offering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've seen a lot of good things come out of that too. When you have a lot of transparency, I mean, that's probably sounds dumb saying I've seen a lot of good things come out of it. But I mean, I really have, where people do go back to the table. They feel like they have a better understanding and they collaborate more, whether it be across team silos or within their team. Just it's keeping your eye on that ball so that suddenly that every feature you're working on, you think of that strategic initiative, that becomes part of your planning, part of your innovative thinking. It really opens the door to a lot of innovative thinking if that kind of information is clearly communicated. I know we're always kind of badgering in projects we're working on, like what's the direction of the organization, so we get it, we're working on this product with you. But if your organizational goals, that vision is we want to work, oh, oh, lost me for a second there. Smarter, better, then that may be totally, that's a different ball game, because now you may need to think about that data that your organization has. You may need to think about the machine learning, the AI technologies that are out there, versus just creating your feature list, creating those features that are on your list. It needs to align with the goals of the organization. So
what that whole statement you made around asking clients what is your vision outside of the work that we've been brought in to do is a really key point, because it helps to get folks to pause. I think there have been a number of instances where it it was a cause for pause for our client to say, what is that vision? Do we really know? Have we defined it effectively?
yeah,
And it's coming from an objective perspective, in terms of us asking, which then allows them to really ensure that they have done the work to make sure that that vision exists, that it's been communicated, and that whatever work we are performing aligns to those things, which is a win-win for the customer or for our client. And when you think about that, it also speaks to the need for researchers and strategists in your organization
mhm,
to really think beyond the next 12 to 24 months.
yes. Yeah, and
You've
I'm
got to,
glad you mentioned that. The researchers, the UXers, and that's our kind of where we end up focused. But that is true. That vision should be driving that kind of work, in fact, because technically we always want to be well ahead of whatever, you know, um, feature that's sitting in the sprint. We should be looking at other things. We should be looking down the road, so we're not interfering later by throwing a monkey wrench in things, or not validating how that vision might come into play with whatever products we're working on. So anyway, I interrupted you, but I like you brought in UX. We are UXers, so that made sense.
yeah, and shame on you and shame on your researchers for not pushing the envelope around that. And when you see researchers in your organization that seem deflated, that seem less enthusiastic about the work that they're doing, part of that could be around the fact that they're too narrowly focused around the near term, and they're not able to connect that back to that bigger vision
Right.
or to inform that vision. And for those of us that are have advanced degrees, may have more experience, maybe more big picture thinkers and more strategic in our thinking, and we're hired into those roles, it it does us a disservice to put us in a box where it's just
Right.
about, okay, focus on the research for the here and now, and never giving that or never presenting that opportunity for that work to be a bigger picture kind of
Right.
conversation or effort. That is deflating.
Yes,
That
it is.
is very deflating.
It is. And you know what? Even worse is when you don't have good insight into that vision. And so you're focused on your silo, your research, even getting ahead is just getting ahead on features you think might be we need to research that are in the pipeline. Versus really a seasoned researcher can help to validate that vision, what it means to users, how it resonates with users. Even more importantly than is what does it mean to users in the context of your organization, in the context of your product lines. I think UX is a valuable resource even at that level, but definitely for your own product line as you're thinking, you need to have that insight so that you can get out there. And as you're doing these activities, I know we used to have back in the day in one position I was in, we actually had like vision work even on our product. Once we had the company vision, like this is us 5 years out, this is what we envision, this is our strategy. uh, we would create our own visions, our own what we called vision roadmaps, so that each team could actively participate in that. And in the context of our projects, we could go validate. We could even present it, to senior level people to see if we were in line with what they were thinking about that vision statement. But then we can move ahead so that when it was time for the rubber to meet the road, we were going. We were ready to go. We had a lot of innovation in play because the project teams were ready. They were collaborating. They were focused on the bigger picture. It really boosts morale. It boosts that need people feel to participate and be part of. So anyhow, I don't think you can underestimate the value of that vision in terms of back to what you said, cost savings when you have project teams not really aware of it and how they fit in, but also morale, innovation. There are lots of wins there.
Mm, yes. And let's kind of shift that to even the conversation around prospects. So when you think about taking your business, that vision, looking at taking your business into a new consumer space, a new problem space, a new vertical, you've got to define that vision and communicate it in a way that people and your organization can see the opportunity, so that part of that work effort, like you were saying in that example you just provided, part of your vision or your effort, part of your effort rather, around that vision is to go and test out or to make sure that you're asking questions to those that are not customers today
Right.
or others in their organization that align more closely to that new vertical or that new problem space that you're trying to solve for. And so what you end up getting is an efficiency around an engagement where the folks that are individual contributors are thinking about their own role differently. And they're not only going out and doing the work for the near term deliverables, but they're starting to also bake in practices and
Mhm.
questions and observations and looking at data that's out there that might align to the direction that you as a leader want to take the organization. And that's the smarter way to keep your teams engaged, but also to make sure that when they look at what they're doing today and how it relates to the future, how do you make sure that what you're doing today kind of accomplishes or does something for both?
Yes, exactly. And that was another good point, going back to the research piece. Are the personas the same? Is it the same audience?
Right.
Because if it's not, you better identify that and start leveraging, getting that kind of input from those prospects, identifying the correct prospect. And again,
Mhm.
I love examples. I think we've recently had projects we've done where we saw that. It's like, well, the vision is we're going to get smarter. We're going to get smarter with how we do these things. Um,
Mhm.
well, all of a sudden, that meant the kind of technologies, at least we recommended and really were the right answer. You have a whole different persona that's going to come in and be your primary user all of a sudden. So, whereas it was high tech service people that, their goal is to make money, it needs to be difficult so that their organizations can make money. But now you're, and so that was the audience
Mhm.
previously. If you've changed that vision, if you've changed what strategically where you want to be and leveraging things like AI and certain kinds of interfaces and templates and things of that nature that make things easy, well, you've just opened up your audience. You have a much broader audience now.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite of the people you're having us test with because they don't want you to do this, you
Mhm.
know. So anyhow, I think it's that's another place where it really plays a role where you need valid data with valid prospects that you're going to be targeting.
You can almost envision delivering that vision with a sprinkle of a description or an expectation of the archetype that's going to consume
Yes.
or be the consumer of that vision. And that means that work had to get done.
Yeah.
I haven't always been the biggest fan of personas,
Yeah.
but more and more I see how necessary they are. So, sitting in the seat of a researcher, you have that perspective, but the rest of the organization may not. And so, delivering or communicating that vision coupled with the consumer and some details around, their perspectives, their motivations, their pain points you're solving for, those things are really effective in helping teams understand, like you're saying,
Yeah.
is the work that I'm doing today even relevant to those future customers? Or is it a completely new set of customers, a new set of inquiry that
Yep.
I need to also put on my radar?
Yep.
That's
And
a,
I don't know. It's I don't know any ideas you have, you know, in terms of, well, what's that mean? Senior leadership people, I think they know what a company's vision is and value statement. So obviously, be transparent, work with the teams, product managers, senior level people on teams, whether you're development leader, product management leader, you take that vision and you work with your team. You need to develop your own vision that fits in with that and communicate that to your teams. And I even encourage people with all the downtime we have, I say that kiddingly. But when there is that time, why don't you let each team kind of build out some proof of concept? I won't even go that far. Build out some version of a vision for the product components they're
mhm.
working on. I
Yeah.
think there are exercises that can be done that make things clear to people and how they can work with the company versus being dragged along or worse, working against that company vision. So
Yeah, yeah. Sketch out some
yeah,
concepts. Use
yep,
those wireframing tools to communicate those concepts in a scrappy way that convey kind of where that vision takes the product or how you create a new experience around that product. I think the
yeah,
key also, I love the way that you kind of introduce what I'm thinking, but you think about those senior leaders who are consumers of, the CEO or the GM's vision, who don't necessarily understand how important that vision is to their team's efforts. And they either don't really grasp, aren't really sold on,
hmm,
don't remind their teams we're trying to align to this vision. And so that's where I think that messy middle gets in the way of the team and the individual contributors from the bottom up really being effective and successful in their practice,
hmm.
is when folks in that messy middle kind of lose, the message gets lost.
It gets lost. Yes. Yep.
And it's really, really important for the senior leader who defined that vision, who communicated that ultimate vision, for them to ensure that their leaders are bought in,
Yep.
understand, are utilizing that as a mechanism for keeping the teams engaged around what's next, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So it's important.
It is. It is. And it can be fun too, by the way.
It can absolutely be fun. I can see design challenges of, I don't care what role you're in the organization, coming up with concepts and,
Mhm.
presenting those concepts, testing them out, seeing what works, that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, we are at our time. This went by so fast.
It
And
did.
this is our first session in December. We've got a couple more weeks going. If there are topics of interest, please share them out. You have questions for us, we are here. And if you need any assistance in planning for 2024, you know where to find us. Have an awesome week, and thanks again for watching.
Yes. Thank you.